Welcome to a special edition of TV3. I'm Mike Briggs, and I have some special guests with me. Dan Dodens is here to talk about Car 26, and also Glenn Guerra, who is part of our rebuilding project here. He's the master rebuilder, and we are coming to you from a special location. This is Glacier Transit and Storage in beautiful downtown Plymouth, and we are talking about Car 26. It's standing right behind me, and we're going to be visiting that a little bit later, some of the intricacies of something about Car 26. But Dan, I want to ask you first to take us back just a little bit in history. Tell me a little bit about Car 26.
Okay, Car 26 came to Sheboygan in 1908 along with two sister cars. Shortly after it came to Sheboygan, it went into service on the Sheboygan Falls Plymouth line, and later on to Crystal Lake and Elkhart Lake. And it served as an interurban vehicle for 30 years, from 1908 to 1938.
Now, that's a rather short time in terms of centuries to have a car in action. So it was a short time of history that this car was actually used.
That's true, because what happened is that the automobile came into prominence along with buses, and they took a lot of business away from the interurban.
Now, Glenn, you're involved in the restoring of this Car 26, and you've been in the restoring business of cars and trains for how long?
Since 1985, so I guess it'd be about 14 years now.
And so when you saw Car 26, we're going to be seeing some of this, but you saw something that had to take a step back. It was really in pretty rough shape.
Well, they all are. The wooden cars don't hold up very well, and I kind of expected what I saw. So it's just a matter of outlining what's there and what needs to be done.
This looked a lot different when it was purchased, I believe, from Cincinnati.
Right. It was built by Cincinnati Car Company, and I believe it arrived here in March of 1908.
And you need to tell me a little bit about the track. It's kind of neat. It went from Elkhart Lake to Plymouth to Sheboygan Falls to Sheboygan. Is that correct?
Yes. It actually, Sheboygan was the headquarters of the company, and the depot on A Street south of Penn Avenue is still there.
And if we were looking at our board over here, we have 1908 to 1938, Dan, and that's when the Sheboygan Railways and the electric company buys these three new trolley cars.
Right.
And it did. We have some black and white shots that it really did look very nice in those years.
Yes, it did. It was a very attractive car.
And Glenn, when you actually look at these pictures and planning your restoration?
Oh, definitely, because we have to try and understand some of the modifications that were done by the railroad. When you look at a project like this, you have to develop an interpretive plan as to what you're going to do and how the car is going to be displayed when it's finished.
Right.
That has a lot to do with the condition of the car and so on. And you look at the pictures to see the modifications that were done, how extensive they were, and what it's going to take to undo them if you want to go back.
Right, and things changed with this car too, because after it was closed out after 30 years, it was bought by the Hunick family. Is that correct?
That's correct. Mr. and Mrs. J.B. Hunick of Cedar Grove bought the car in 1939, and they moved it to some land that they owned near Cedar Grove, and they converted it into a summer cottage.
Okay, and then you became involved in 47?
Right. My parents bought the car in 47. We had vacationed in the car since 43, so we had some experience with it, and we used it as a vacation cottage until the early 1990s when we donated the car to the museum at East Troy.
So you actually lived in it in the summer months as a summer cottage?
Yes, we did. For several weeks every summer, we would go out there. It would be like camping. The car had no plumbing. Initially, in the first years, we had kerosene lamps, and it's kind of roughing it, but it was lots of fun.
Well, you can see by looking behind me here that it was really roughing it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And when you first saw it, how many different types of woods are we talking about here?
Well, typically the cars are made of yellow pine for the long sills in the car. There's a considerable amount of white oak in some of the other framing. The rest of the body main framing is white ash, and the exterior is all yellow poplar.
And when you actually looked at it, the wood can be deteriorated the most, but the wood is something that can be most easily replaced.
Right. It's fairly easy to work with wood. It's the tools today are the same tools that they built the car with initially. Wood cuts very simple, very easily. With most of it, you can just use a table saw. That's
Yeah.
plenty good.
The hard part had to be from the bottom up. The
Right.
metal work, finding the used parts from various
Right,
sources.
and the museum had been planning that for a long time. They've been scouring the country getting parts for this car, and they do have all the major components now on hand. They have the trucks and the controllers and the air compressor and things like that.
Well, let's talk just a bit about the museum, because the East Troy Railroad Museum is the recipients of your donation.
That's correct.
And how do you go about deciding that you wanted to donate it to them, and were they receptive to this?
Yes, they were very receptive to the car. Actually, they had been seeking the car for a number of years before we donated it. Some of the reasons we donated it to the museum include, first of all, they have a car barn where the car can be stored out of the weather. After standing outside for 53 years, we wanted it undercover.
Yeah.
They have a competent staff to maintain the car and repair the car as necessary. And at East Troy, they have a 7-mile electrified railroad between East Troy and McGuanago, where this car will run on special occasions, such as Sheboygan County Days, which we're planning to institute.
So actually, the end goal of this is to make it a working passenger car.
Exactly.
And when you turned it over to the East Troy Railroad people, that was your goal too, to see it restored to that level?
Yes, definitely.
Now, we brought it into Plymouth 2 years ago now. How long has it been in the city?
Since November.
Since November of this year, so
Last
year.
Right.
So just a few months.
Right.
And then you actually looked at it though more than 2 years ago.
Right.
That's where I was mixed up. So you actually, back in '96, you actually did an evaluation.
Right. Dan and Carolyn were going to be retiring soon, and they felt they'd like to spend some time and see that this car got rebuilt. They'd like to volunteer their time for fundraising and so on. So they approached the museum, and the museum contacted me. I was in the midst of another project at the time. They contacted me to come up and look at it and evaluate what it was going to take to fix it, how many man hours, what kind of materials were required, and so on. And after that proposal, Dan and Carolyn mulled it over for another year and decided that they would like to go ahead with it, and they felt that it would be possible to raise the funds. And we started a year ago in November with that. They formed an association. They've been contacting people to raise money. And they actually hired me December 1st of last year to come up here and start working on it.
Now you actually have moved into the city of Plymouth.
Right, right. I live here in Plymouth. I'll be here for about 2 years, but it's going to take to do the car, maybe a little less.
Okay, and so you're actually planning to put your roots down here temporarily to put this together.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Part of the deal.
Now, one thing we have to talk about is the fact there are 80 donors have already climbed on board, so to speak, this railroad project.
That's true. We have donations from 80 people. Most of them are individuals. We have one business at this point, and that's what we'll be working on in the future. We'll be approaching businesses and foundations.
We should, before we take a short break here, we should talk about the fact that we do have some open houses coming up. You've had several already, but there's one coming up that people can actually step up and see what we're seeing tonight.
Our next open house is March 13th, right in this building from 10 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon.
So from 10 until 3, people can stop in and look over history in the remaking.
Exactly. Everybody's invited to come by.
Now, I was going to ask you before we take a break, Glenn, we're going to see the project. It's a project in motion here. You've been working on it for a couple months now, and you've already done a few things to it.
Right, right.
Give me just an idea of a couple of the things that would look different, not only from when you started, but what's going to look different from here to the open house?
Between now and the open house, not a whole lot.
Showtime.
Yeah. I'm going to leave the right side of the car open so people can see the construction of it.
Right.
We felt that the open house events were important to show people progress. It's an educational thing. You can see how cars are put together and what we're doing. This is also important for the donors to see that something's happening with their donations.
Right.
Very important thing. Now, the left side of the car is pretty much done. All the siding is on it, and I've got some of the upper sash windows in place, and so on.
So we'll get to see part of it done on one side and the open, how it all put together
on the other side. Yeah.
And that will be something that they will be able to see when they come to the open house.
Oh, definitely. And we'll be here. I'll be here, of course.
Sure, to
and any
answer
questions, we can point things out and so on.
I'm holding in my hand a ride back in time on the trolley. I've written on it just a little bit. But this is actually a history book booklet made at possibly a fourth grade level, an understanding what happened to the car, how it's being rebuilt. It's a nice history lesson for an educational process of maybe fourth graders on up.
Exactly.
And you put this together, or you had some people along with you
Well,
putting it together?
My daughter-in-law and son worked
Yep.
on that for us. And we thought it would be nice to provide the community with some information about an era that most people don't remember or don't know about.
Right. And one thing we should mention is that this is going to be an educational activity. The schools may and probably should get involved in visiting and keeping an update on where this is going.
Right. We were at Plymouth High School today, and we started some preliminary talks about getting some tours from students who are studying woodworking or transportation, and maybe some fourth grade students in here as well.
When we think about our, at least Plymouth School District having woods classes, and they can see fine craftsmanship, if I can bless you with fine craftsmanship.
Not only that, but it's a little bit different construction than house construction.
Right.
And this was really the heyday of the woodworking industry around the turn of the century when this car was built.
You can truly say you don't do things like that today.
Not really,
Yeah.
not really. But it would be pretty interesting. I would enjoy pointing some of it out to people. You know, I make part of a study of that myself.
Well, we're going to take a short break here, and when we come back, we're actually going to visit pieces of the Car 26. We're going to look inside a little bit. I'll ask you a few more questions about what I'm looking at. Possibly you can point out the types of wood, where you're at, what I should be looking for, and so we'll be right back. We're looking at the top of Car 26 here, and you can see the workmanship changes between what I call the roof. There's a better name than roof, and the side of Car 26, and you get an idea of what it actually looks like. And this is the bare wood. We'll talk a little more about the wood in a minute. I have Dan here at the entrance where there would be steps normally that would come down. They would be metal steps, or would they be wood, Dan?
There's one step that would fit right in here. It has a metal plate, but it's made out of wood.
And I'm calling it an entrance. You call it
I call it a vestibule. There's a vestibule on this side, on that end also. When this car was new, it had doors on both sides of the vestibule.
And you can see the change. This is we're looking at what is the wiring at one time, Dan?
I believe so, yes.
And did it have electricity when you used it as a summer cottage?
After a while, the electricity came through, yes.
Okay.
In about 1948, I believe.
And as we look across the top, you can see that there's a lot of weathering. Now, you were mentioning earlier there was a reason why the wood just didn't hold up.
That's true. And I think Glenn can explain it even better, but a railroad car does not have an eave. And when the rain comes down, it runs right down the side of the car and hits these windowsills, and they rot away.
And it just sits there.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. What I want to do is just slide down here a little bit. We're looking at all of the new construction here as I walk down, and you can see the archways is what I get such a kick out of. This was the way it would have been. Is that correct?
Exactly. And those windows on the top there will be all stained glass.
I'm going to ask Glenn to come over here briefly, and we'll talk about the way it used to be, if you wouldn't mind, Glenn.
Okay. Well, this is a picture of it at the factory in Cincinnati, Mike. This is when it was new. This is the sister car, number 25. Now, all that was available at that time was black and white photography. We do have this color postcard here, and it shows the car. It would be a bright orange with kind of a cream color up above. Now, we've looked for samples on the car. We found paint samples, and we've confirmed the colors, so that postcard is colored correctly. In addition, the roof should be somewhat of a mustard yellow color. So it should be a pretty striking car when it's done. Now, this bare wood, this gets primed and painted with a flat oil-based paint, and then they varnished over it. In those days, they didn't use self-glossing paints. And it gives a whole different gloss to it. You'll be surprised when you see it. It's pretty spectacular.
Well, why don't you show me some of the original wood that you took off?
This is one of the original upper sash windows. This is how we took it off the car. It'd be like one of these up here. Right. This part here had a piece of trim over it. The siding continued up and around, so only this part was exposed to the weather. Well, in this area, you can see some of the original finish. We can determine from these photographs and from some of this other this part of the sash should have all been varnished in the original, which will be even more striking. All the sash here and that sash up there is all going to be varnished. And we know that it was somewhat of a golden oak color. Now, this is not a very good sample for that, but let me show you another one here.
Okay. What's neat is that you've got here and you've repieced it and developed it with new wood, and it's so nice.
Yeah, and it's a quarter sawn oak. Now, when these went on the car, like so, this would have been the inside, this is the outside. This part was hidden behind this post. Now, the sash was varnished before it was put in, but here we have a sample right here. This has never been exposed to the sunlight. This is the original color of the interior finish. All this dark is from the sunlight attacking the shellac finish. So this is the color we're going to revarnish everything.
Okay, so at one time you're telling me all of this wood was that
golden
color.
oak color.
And so just weather, sun, and the aging process.
Yeah, shellac is a natural finish, and it's attacked by ultraviolet light, and that's what happens to it after time.
Fantastic.
So
now this wood, let's talk just a little bit about the wood that you put on here. This wood is?
This is yellow poplar.
And now where would you find yellow poplar? Did you find it locally?
No, it grows in the south. It doesn't grow much farther north than Indianapolis. And it was the wood that was typically used for this. It's not a true poplar. It's a member of the magnolia family, but it's always sold under the trade name of yellow poplar, and it was in these days. It's the same wood that the car was sided in originally. It's very even, uniform grain, and it's a good foundation for paint, and that's why they used it. It's not very good for rot resistance, but it took paint very well.
Well, if you come over here just a minute, Glenn, if we look here, this is not the same type of wood.
No, this is ash. The windowsill is ash, and these corner pieces are ash, and this is poplar again, and then this is all white oak, and the white oak has been quarter sawn to give you a different look to the grain.
Explain that terminology to me, if you could.
Well, as a tree grows, if this is the trunk of the tree, and it's a cylinder, the normal wood is cut out like so around the log.
Right.
So the grain, if here's a board, the grain runs through the board like this if you're looking at the end of it.
Right.
In a quarter sawn board, the grain runs through the board this way. And oak has some very large ray cells, and they give a different, distinct look to the wood. It's an architectural feature that was real popular at the turn of the century, which is also this golden oak look. This was sort of the arts and crafts time of architecture.
And so this is what Dan was telling me about. This is completely exposed to the weather.
Right.
Water would sit right on here, wouldn't it?
And see here, this is the main framing of the car. The window rides right on it, and the water gets in here, and pretty soon there's a little hole there, and then the water starts running down in here, and it just makes a mess behind the siding.
Yeah.
So.
And so when you looked at this for the first time, this is what you were seeing. You were seeing
this kind of stuff.
And the siding also was of that same deteriorated look. And so then you decided you tore it all off. And so this was a bare skeleton when you started?
Right. And the only part that's original right now is there's a sill down here. That was original. We had to redo everything here.
Obviously, you shouldn't be, we have it up on blocks right now.
Right.
It'll definitely get to the wheels, and
when it gets back to the museum, they'll put it on wheels and hook up the motors and so on.
Okay.
Now, with the entire car is not as bad as this. The sides on the cars is what really doesn't hold up. The framing underneath and stuff was pretty good. We had to make some spot repairs. The roof and everything, even though the paint looks pretty bad, is in pretty good shape. I don't know if you can see inside yet, or when you get inside, the ceiling panels are in pretty good shape, and that's usually an indication that water didn't get in there. Okay. And the other thing that's remarkable about this car, when you look inside, is how complete the interior is. Usually, a car that's been used as a cottage has walls missing and, other modifications that you would do to your house and stuff. Sure. This one never did. And they never even painted it. It's still the original finish on the inside.
Well, we have Dan and his family for thanking them of not
breaking them why they never varnished it.
Well, we are going to ask that question of Dan in just a moment, because Dan, I'm just going to slide away as we look at this. You actually decided that you were going to leave it the way it was?
Exactly.
And
my parents were very interested in leaving the car as much as it was as when we got it.
So when we go inside, we're going to be looking at some of the interior work, and you can point out where chairs I'm going to use terminology that's wrong, but I'm going to say chairs for now. I'll let you correct me when we get in there. And we'll be looking at some of the inside and the siding on the inside part, okay? So we'll take a short break. We'll be right back when we're inside the train. As we bring the camera into car 26, we'll be entering what would be your living room. Is that correct?
That's true.
So when you use this as a cottage, Gary Kaiser, our camera person, is bringing it right into the living room of your cottage. He's gone through the vestibule,
Yes.
or what I would call your front porch.
Okay.
And he's now standing right near your living room, and we're standing in the dining area.
That's right. We had a kitchen table right in this corner. We had a refrigerator over there and a stove over there. There was a sofa bed over here and some chairs along this wall.
And so you could put 4 people around the table,
Yes.
and you had a stove, a refrigerator. No, they weren't a full-fledged stove.
It was a small stove,
Yeah.
apartment size.
Apartment. And so this is where you actually spent your mornings, afternoons in this area.
Exactly.
And we look at the floor here, you can certainly see where the seats used to be. I see you even still have some tin. Was that correct? The tin that would be part of where those seats used to be
There
attached
seems
to
to
the
be a
flooring?
piece of tin at every place where there was a seat fastened.
And so when you actually took it over as a cottage, these came out, or were they already out? Were the seats already gone?
Yes, the seats were gone, and this was all covered with linoleum.
Okay, and so as the seats, I assume, Glenn, are something that's going to be put in last.
Right, right. That's one of the last things to go in.
And they have to be specially made, no doubt.
No, I think the museum has a set of them.
Is that right?
Yeah, Hale and Kilburn was a company that made a lot of seats for
Yeah.
everybody, and we're
Mhm.
pretty certain that there was a Hale and Kilburn seat in here.
Oh, goodness.
So it's a generic seat.
Yeah,
It wasn't
yeah.
made specific for this car.
If we're going to take a little notice to the sidewalls, I don't care which sidewall we look at here, we're going to look over here, and you can explain what's happening on the inside here, if you would, Glenn.
Well, this is sort of typical construction for a railroad car of this era. We can see the posts here, as they were called. In your house, you'd call them studs. In a railroad car, they call them posts. This dark area, this piece right here, this is what I call an over truss. It's a piece of steel that goes from one end of the car to the other. It holds the ends of the car up. And right here, we have another piece of steel that's bolted through these posts into the outside of the car, and that actually goes through the sill and is bolted to the sill. That gives the car quite a bit of strength. In car construction, this would be known as a truss plank here. Now, we have blocking in here to fill in. I don't know if you can see in here, Gary, there's rods in here. These rods are actually what hold the car together. They go from the top plate down through the sill, and they're at every post. There's a pair of them at the paired post. There's a rod in here. There's rods like this throughout the car. They go through the floor from side to side and everything, and that's really what holds the car together.
Is that right? And
Yeah.
so the wood actually attaches around the rod.
Right, right.
And so I'm trying to think how that refers to a home, but this has to be constructed more solidly than a home. Because
Right, 'cause it
it's
moves.
rocking and moving. It's like
Exactly.
a constant earthquake kind
Right,
of feeling.
right,
And so everything's held together by these steel rods, and from top to bottom.
right. Now, in here, then, they just nailed an interior finish like you would on your house. Now, I had to remove it all to replace the side, but behind us, you get some idea of what it looks like, the interior.
We're going to actually back up just a little bit, and I'm going to ask Dan to explain a couple things as we go through here. We just walked by what had to be your water closet. Is that correct? The restroom.
Well, when the railroad used this car, there was a toilet in here. This was the toilet room.
And you actually kept it that way?
We used, the people who bought it, the eunuchs made it into a pantry.
So it was part of the pantry of your kitchen is what it was?
Exactly.
Okay, so it was converted from a restroom to a pantry.
Yes.
And we're walking into the bedroom here, and I'm going to just weave through here myself. And so the bedroom actually was the smoker's room. Explain that.
This was called the smoking compartment of the railroad car. There were long benches on both sides of this room, and this is where the people sat who smoked. What we did is we converted this into our bedroom. We had a double bunk in that corner, a double bunk where we're standing, and there was a rollaway bed here. So we were able to sleep 6 people in this area.
Is that right? You slept 6 in the smoker's room.
Right.
Now, if you look at the ceiling, if you wind your way up to the ceiling, we still have some straps. I assume that's for people standing, and so they could stand in the smoke and stand and hang on.
Right, right. In the later years, this car was used for the shift changes at Kohler, and it would run just from Kohler back to Plymouth, or excuse me, back to Sheboygan,
Right.
take people back home after that. And it was sort of held in reserve.
Yeah. And so as we stand in the what would you remember as your bedroom, this will also be restored, I assume, to a actual seating passengers.
Right, right. Like Dan said, there was 2 benches on the sides here originally, and in this corner there was a little coal stove. The car originally had steam heat. With a little coal stove, and it had pipes along the truss plank for heat. In later days, it was converted to electric heat.
Huh. So if I understand correctly, if you didn't smoke, you got better chairs possibly to sit in. Is that correct?
I think so.
Because all they had was a bench in here.
Right, right.
Now, as we look forward to some of the opening, we may go outside and look just a couple more shots of the outside, but give me a rendition of what it would have been like, if you could, in the turn of the century, riding from small town to small town on a train.
Well, that's really the remarkable thing about this car. It was designed for, at this time, the interurban railroads were intending to compete with the steam railroads for long-distance luxury passenger service. There was no other way of getting around in 1908. From Plymouth here, to get to Sheboygan by horse was an all-day ride. And this train ran every hour. You know, this was the epitome of travel. And there's a certain amount of opulence in this car that was designed in. Again, it was designed to look like a steam railroad car. It wasn't designed to look like a street car. We have the clerestory roof. We have the vestibules. We had the washroom in the car. We had the smoking compartment. All these were features of a steam railroad car. And the nice woodwork on the inside. I mean, this really was the way to travel. You could go to Sheboygan and go shopping and come home the same day.
And that would never be possible if you had any other means.
No. And the other thing with the interurban railroads is they would stop at road crossings and pick you up, where the steam railroads wouldn't. So people that lived on the farm could walk to the nearest crossing and wait. When a train came, they waved and the train stopped for them, picked them up.
Well, I tell you, Dan, as we look at this bit of history reversing itself, taking something that you remember and was introduced to you as a cottage and seeing it change has got to be a remarkable experience for you.
Yes, we're very excited about this project, and we're really looking forward to it, and Glenn is doing a wonderful job on this car.
As we close out our final shots here, I want to remind everyone that you've gotten 80 donors so far. You're looking for more donations as well as corporate sponsors to complete this project.
That's correct. That's correct. We're off to a really good start. There's a lot of enthusiasm in the community about it already, which is sort of encouraging.
And as we close out, if you can just tell me that in 2 years we're just going to be amazed.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, we're going to just take our break here, and I want to thank everyone for being with us in a special edition of TV3. The Car 26 tour is coming to its completion. I want to thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time on TV3. Welcome to Glacier Transit and Storage, where we are talking about our second installment of Car 26, and a little more than Car 26. How would you discuss that, Dan?
Well,
It's called an interurban railroad car.
and this was an interurban car that ran in Sheboygan County from 1908 to 1938 for 30 years and provided transportation to the residents of the county.
Sure. And I have with me Dan and Glenn from our last episode, and we're going to continue with some ideas of what's changed since we've been here. It's been about 5 months, we've calculated, and you've seen some things change before your eyes, haven't you?
Many, many changes. Glenn has made remarkable progress, and we want to show some of those changes to you tonight.
Before we get on to those progresses that have been made, some of the magic that I say is artwork here, We want to mention very briefly some things coming up. You've had a couple open houses. How have they been going?
We've had 4 open houses. We've had about 100 people at each open house, except for the open house on Mill Street, when we had between 300 and 400 people. And the Plymouth Model Railroad Club had a brat fry for us that day.
And you have one coming up, a big one coming up at the depot on the 19th of September. That's the one that I'm looking forward to. It involves food.
Right. On September 19th, we're having a dinner and an auction at the Depot Restaurant here in Plymouth. The restaurant holds about 90 people, and we are sending out invitations at this very time to people who have supported the project and who are interested in it.
And I hope you at least think of me when you have those ordered, but I know you have a lot of people that have been invaluable to getting this off the ground, and you have a way also of thanking them by allowing this dinner and having a fantastic person coming. Russ Porter, an artist, is actually planning something for this.
Right. Russ has completed a painting of Car 26. The scene is set in the city of Sheboygan, downtown on 8th Street, as the car is ready to leave for Plymouth in about 1910. And it's a very beautiful painting, and we're very pleased that he took the time and donated it to this project.
Now, he is a noted railroad and marine artist and also historian, and so he's going to capture the authentic look, is what I think is what you're saying.
Right. He was very particular about, for example, the detail on the buildings and trying to make the car just as best as he could.
Now, on the 19th, starting at 5:30, the dinner at 6, $30 per person. That's on Sunday, September 19th. You also are going to have prints available. You have, there's 16 by 20 print, and 500 of them will be made.
Right. And print number 1 will be framed, signed and numbered, and that'll be put up for auction on the 19th. We'll have other prints there for sale as well.
The first 100 will be signed and numbered, and the rest will not be.
Correct.
And so there's a benefit in getting in there early.
That's true.
And getting on the list.
Yes.
And so that's all happening on September 19th, and I hope it works out well for you. We'll mention it again before we leave tonight, September 19th on a Sunday. Big activities happening at the depot.
Correct.
We're going to take a moment now and talk to Glenn. I don't want to just having to stand here, Glenn, but we want to talk about some of the things that have happened here to Car 26 since the last time we visited. And I think the vestibule, or what I called when I first came here, the front porch, but now I'm learning a little more. It's the vestibule. Tell me some things that have happened since we were here last.
Well, when you were here last, I don't think I had even started on this yet. This is the rear end of the car. It's the same as the front end, so you'll get an idea what the front will look like. But from here down, from the windowsill down, was already rotten a long time ago, and Dan's family had a carpenter replace that. So these posts were gone from here down, all this other framing. Up above was not in too good a shape either. The roof had leaked a little bit and stuff. So I had to tear this all apart and make a whole new end here.
Some of the things that are important to notice is what caught my eye immediately was when I looked at the front here, and we've got, well, it looks like close to
2 3/4.
Almost a 3-inch board
you've
got here.
Yeah, that's what it started as. Yeah.
A solid 3-inch board that's been tapered down a little bit, and that is oak.
Right. That's white oak, and it's kind of difficult finding pieces that thick in oak. Not very many people carry it. Oak's very difficult to dry. And
well, that's what you were telling me, the fact that you can find the oak, but you'll never find it straight, you'll never find it uncracked, because it takes so long to dry according to the thickness.
Yeah, so that was a real search trying to find that piece. Luckily, we found some, and I've got it put together here.
Now, you were telling me that this one piece of $7 a running foot was the number I was given, and having worked just enough wood and housing and stuff, I can calculate in my head this is a valuable piece of wood.
Yeah, that particular one is.
And it must be the fact that you were telling me that the way they dry it takes months to dry it.
Yeah, the guy who we bought it from told me it takes about 9 months to dry a piece of wood that thick in the kiln. So and it has to be all the same size in the kiln at the same time.
Now, some of the other things that have been added, if you can see, we've got all of our this looks to be
These are called platform knees here. Okay. The kind of reddish parts are steel. They actually go up underneath the car and tie into the sills, and they're the main support for the platform. This piece of oak here is really little more than just something to nail the floor to, and that's just bolted to the platform knee.
And it's really not too long.
No, it only goes back to the car body end sill. You know, in other words, to the door back there.
This is tin,
Right.
and then we get up to, as you go up, you have this arched windows, and they're just, you can't wait until you start getting the real glass put in.
We'll see a little bit on the side of the car, but this here, this gets varnished, the sash, and then this part will be painted, and this will stay varnished. So cars can be pretty colorful when it's done. From here down, it's orange. From here up, it's kind of a yellow color, bright yellow, and then this gets kind of golden oak varnish on it.
Yeah, and the top will be a mustard yellow.
Mustard yellow on the canvas on the roof. Yeah.
Now, you could have, this is new.
Yeah, this whole front end is new here, or the rear end actually.
Yeah, and you had pieces that you could have actually maybe restored.
Yeah, there was a few of them that were still good. A couple of the corner posts. I've got one over here. Let me get it for you.
How he gets that, just get a look at what we have here. The metal piece is new, and this is a beautiful piece of wood, and this is what it's replaced. And if you could just show me what I'm looking at
Okay,
here.
this is one of the corners. This is actually would be this corner over here. And it probably could have been repaired. I could have filled this in with epoxy and some of this down here. But it has more value to us for the information that's in it yet. It was better to make a new piece. The new piece is a little more solid. But I've got here, I've got the location of the horizontal ribs that went across the front.
Okay.
You know, so I was able to get my dimensions there. I can see this little recess in here where the steel went in. I can see this here where the arch over the door goes.
And another
so on.
piece of steel went here. Where
Yeah, that's
my
just little
thumb is.
pieces of tin on the corners up
Yep.
here. And this was the mounts for the storm windows. They actually screwed on over here. And then under this paint somewhere here is the remains of where the handrails used to mount. So once I get around to stripping this paint off and stuff like that, I'll find, like here, I'll find marks where the handrails used to be. These 3 screw holes are them.
And so actually you can get a better true replica by actually using this piece of wood throughout the restoration as opposed to putting it up.
Right, exactly. And to keep this piece for an archival piece, it still has some value too. There's some records for the paint here. Paint could be analyzed and so on. This is a piece of the original interior trim. We can analyze some of the paint on that. So now this piece has more value to us just the way it is than to try and repair it and put it back on the car.
As we set this aside, I would like to direct our attention to the very top of this, of car 26. As we look at the top, you see all of the different slats of wood coming down. And they're coming down on a piece of, one solid piece of wood that you had to bend. And if you could just take your big pointer there, there, Glenn, and show us what you bent, first of all. That piece has to be...
This piece here...
10 feet long?
Yeah, it's 10 feet long, but it's only 9/16 of an inch thick. It's not, it's sort of deceiving.
Okay.
And it went around this curve with not too much trouble. It was starting to creak and crack a little bit, and I just wetted it, and that took care of it.
And so the way you would, the only way I would know to bend wood is to wet it down and get it to be more flexible.
And the screws retain it in place, so it's okay.
Now you have these boards coming down, and we are going to keep those.
Yeah, this business up here is all in pretty good shape yet. I don't want to have to replace this. When I took the front apart, the top plate, which is behind here, had to be replaced. It was bad. So I got up under here with a saw, and I cut all the nails so I could get the old piece out with as little damage to the roof as possible. Now these parts up here are still okay. There's enough solid here that I can nail to. And there's another piece of wood that covers up over the front of all of this. And then we get canvas over the top of that. So the roof will be adequate for what we need to do. It's just the corner here that I need to replace.
And then when you have, you put what they call a drip board along the front.
A drip molding. They used a little molding along here that they tacked the canvas into, and it had a shape on the bottom that would form the water into a little drip that would fall down instead of run down the front of the car.
When we go to the side view, we'll look a little more at one of the old drip moldings that we've set out. But now you explained to me very briefly, we had metal that we could have, that they put on the front, but they did not put metal on the roof. They used canvas. And they painted the canvas a mustard yellow. And you were explaining why it had to be canvas.
Well, the roof up in here is a compound curve. It's sort of like a basketball. It would be like trying to stretch a piece of paper over a basketball. You couldn't do it without folding it. The paper has no give in multiple directions, only one way. Tin is the same way. The only way it could be formed over that roof would be to either stretch it or form it in a lot of little pieces like the seams on a basketball. And they used canvas instead. It has a little give to it. It'll conform to a three-dimensional surface, a compound curve like that. It's cheap, and it was adequate. It worked. They painted it. They had canvas paints and everything that made it waterproof. Matter of fact, this car still had the original canvas from 1908 when it was made.
Sure.
So
Some of the things we need to understand is that this was used only 30 years, and then it changed a few hands, and Dan finally had it as a, again, repeating, had it as a summer cottage, and then we're bringing it back. And we're going to move to the side now and take a few moments to look at the inside of the vestibule and the side of the car, and we'll talk about some of the changes there, give a little historical development on where all of this took us and where we're going with that side. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back on the side of the car. We're now looking at the vestibule here, and Dan, I'll ask you first. When you used this as a summer cottage, it was a front porch.
Yes.
And what has changed? What did it look like when you had it?
Well, one of the things I noticed is that when we had this as a cottage, this door had been closed by the railroad. And in that particular corner there, we had a cabinet where we stored coats and things, and then we had a little cabinet there for other storage, and that's how we used it.
Well, one of the things that is unique to our audience is the fact that historically, the reason that there was only one entrance, and actually when you had this as a cottage, you did not realize that there was a door on the other side, or ever had been.
That's right.
Is the fact that during the 30 years, when they first started, they had two people manning this.
Yes, they had a motorman and a conductor. It was a two-man car.
And over the course of 30 years before it finally closed down in 38, they went to one, didn't they?
They went to a one-man operation, and then they closed two doors so that one man could handle the car to save money.
That was a way to try to keep it in business a little longer.
That's true.
And that probably got them a couple more years of service.
I think so.
Yeah. Now, Glenn, I'll ask you, when did you find out? Did you always know it had two doors?
yeah, I suspected from the first time that I looked at the car when I did the survey on it, you could tell that there had been a patch there. The way the patch was put in was to just side from here across. The siding didn't match as it went all the way across the car, and it was obvious that they had put something in there.
Yeah.
So
Now,
I wasn't sure exactly what all had to be removed until I actually started working on the car.
Now, as we look inside of our vestibule here, you can see some scratching going on. So there's been some power sanding going on here.
Yeah.
Can you explain what's been happening?
What we're looking at here, and I've been having some help from a girl from over near Oostburg, and she's been coming by doing some analysis of the paint on the car. And what we're trying to determine is all the various paint schemes that were on the car over the years. And we're finding out a lot of interesting stuff. This area down here has been painted 7 times.
Okay.
You know, and we're finding this has only been painted a few times. The other yellow around the door and everything's been painted about 3 times yellow, 2 times orange. Mm-hmm. So, and this window now we know was varnished originally, and it only got painted in the last yellow scheme and then into the orange. So we'll reconstruct all of that for the historic record of the car, you know. And when we end up doing the car, finishing it, this will be varnished. You know, we're going back to the original paint scheme.
Now, you had to replace the entire front of this vestibule, didn't
Right.
you? And you had to how did you maintain that arch? If you look at the very top of this, it's a beautiful arch that you've actually maintained.
This piece you're talking here?
That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
there was a few pieces of it left, and that's a laminated piece. It's glued up out of a couple different pieces of wood, and the glue had come undone. It was impossible to glue back together because the wood had warped and so on. It wouldn't have been a very good fit. But I had enough there that I could get the dimensions, and I made up a pattern and cut that out here.
Now, as we move down the side, I get a chance to talk about a drip board. And now this is what we were talking about would go around the front, and also it goes completely down the side of this
Right.
car when it is finished. And the canvas actually lays underneath it, and I assume these marks where it's tacked down.
These are the nail holes from the canvas where it was nailed down originally.
And it's designed so the water would drip off the end.
Right. It goes on the car sort of like this, Mike.
Yep.
Goes up at the top of the letterboard there, right at the edge of the roof. The canvas lays around here and gets nailed here. This edge is in pretty bad shape, but what it does, it's curved on the back side to come to the front, to a little point here. And water that's running here comes to a point and drips off instead of running down the side of the car. It helps keep the side of the car a little better.
A little cleaner and less deterioration.
On old houses and stuff, they had a little notch cut in the bottom of a windowsill for the same thing.
Yep, that's
to
right.
form a drip. And this, like you said, this will actually wrap around the front edge of the car. And this covers up those the bad edges on those boards we were looking at on the front edge.
Yep, yep. And so that's, you are making new ones.
Yeah,
A new grip board is, is being made.
Right.
Yeah. Now, we also have brought out here some of the original windows and some remakes and where you're going with that. These windows, you just took these out not too long ago. This is a window that is on the very top of the train.
These are the clear story windows up in the top. Up in my pointer here. We can look up here. Here's one of them still left in the car up here. These were for ventilation in the summer, much like a transom window was in an old school building, or the cupolas in old houses and so on. Lets hot air out the top, improved ventilation. As they got to forced ventilation, they gave up on the railroad roof, went away with these. Now, these are actually in pretty good shape. They'll be varnished in the scheme that we're going to go back to. They've been painted now, but they're pretty solid. They're in pretty good shape. I think I may have to replace a couple of them, but by and large, we're going to save these. The green glass is original to the car. That came from Kokomo Glass Company in Kokomo, Indiana, most likely. They've been in business over 100 years making this for railroads.
And you're telling me they are still in business?
They're still in business, and they can still make that same colored green glass.
And we do have to have some...
We'll need a few pieces for these windows here.
Yeah, you see the windows that are up above in the car are going to be match exactly the windows that you see right where the pointer is there, above the window where the people sit.
Right. This is the correct finish for the outside of the car. These are new ones that had to be made because the other ones were too weather beaten to get this kind of finish on. Yeah. We know from the pictures and from the remains of the other windows that this does stay varnished, and then this part here gets all painted. The car will be pretty colorful again.
Now, what color is that?
It's kind of a golden oak.
Golden oak.
Yeah, which was common about that time. It was a real popular finish architecturally in homes.
Well, now we should compare that with a window that has come from down below. And why is there so much more deterioration down below?
The water sits here on the windowsill, and that's what caused all the damage in the side. It started leaking in here and got into the side and everything. Now, these here are the original windows to the car. This is the part that's to the outside. You can see it's in pretty bad shape, and we need to varnish this to look like that. I mean,
it's not going to work.
There's not enough left here to sand to get to some solid wood, so we just decided to make all new windows. There's a sample of one of them behind you there.
Yeah, whoa, get off my grip board. This is a sample of what's going to replace what you have there, and then some of the glass, again, will have to be brought in.
The glass, luckily, we've got almost all of it. There's only about 2 or 3 that are broken. The most important one is the glass from the washroom. It's pressed glass, so you can't see through it. It's got a design on it.
Yeah.
And there's no way of getting that other than making a new mold.
Right, right. Now, some of the important hardware, though, is intact.
Right.
This is from the window.
Yep, came off right here. Here. That's the latch that holds it open.
Yep, that would have gone right here.
Right here.
And so these windows were opened as the windows up above are made to be open to let air breeze through.
We have all the original lifts.
And so we will be shining these up and putting them back on. This actually has something on it. What does that say again?
It says Dayton Hardware Company. That's who made all the hardware for this car. And I've got an old Dayton hardware catalog from 1916. You can look all this stuff up in there.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, so we have the original model numbers of what all these parts were.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, as we look at the car siding, is this correct? I'm calling it car siding.
Right, that's right.
It actually is over the top of possibly a 1 inch, 1.5 inch wood behind it?
Yeah, in the framing, if you remember from the last time when we were here, we had the upright posts, and we had a truss that was built into the side of the car, and then we had all the sound deadening blocking, and all that got sanded, and then the siding got put on over all of that.
So you
got glued and nailed onto that.
What's unique about it to me is the fact that you have boards running at an angle from all the corners.
Right.
And that holds it together.
Right, gives it some sway bracing and you know, a lot more strength to it. There's a lot more in that wall than you would think by looking at it.
Right, it's very thick, and that's what, not only that, but you've got metal rods going through that also stabilize.
Right.
Actually, everything builds around the rod,
Right.
holding it all together.
Any part that's in tension is steel. Any part that's in compression is made out of wood.
Now we have the finished coat, or the finished look above the window is completed.
Right.
You've replaced much of, or nearly all of, the outside of this side. But we should probably take our attention to the roof.
All right.
The roof is not going to need as much work, you're saying?
No, the roof is in really good shape. I was climbing around up there. There's almost no damage structurally to the roof. Now, we saw on the end a little bit. I'm going to have to replace a few of the boards up there.
But if you take your pointer and just explain what you're going to be doing with what's left.
These are the roof ribs up here. They go from side to side and actually support the roof. They're all in really good shape. There isn't a one of them that's bad. The framing here, you can see I've started stripping the paint on it and everything. All that's real solid. The only thing I'll end up replacing is this edge right up here. I've got some soft spots in it, and it needs to be solid enough to hold the nails for the canvas.
Right.
The canvas up here wraps around, gets nailed right in here, and then this little half round covers that. So I'll probably replace that. And I'll probably replace these last three roof boards on the edge.
But that'll be about it.
That's it. On this lower roof, I had to take these off to get at the bolts up here when I was working on the side. But other than that, that's all in good shape. So the roof should go pretty quick. I think a little over 2 months' time, we can have canvas on the roof.
Okay, and then that's when it's going to start taking some different shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it'll look pretty complete. It'll be ready for paint and everything on the exterior, and we'll move to the interior.
Now, before we cut to our next little segment, I do want to bring out some ideas about what's underneath. We've done some changing underneath, haven't we, Glenn? I noticed you brought this one piece in. I had made you bring it in because you just picked it up from Chicago today.
Yeah. These parts here are all made out of steel, and it was the only parts that had salvage value when the car body was sold. So the railroad cut all this stuff off and sold it for scrap metal.
And so it was not part of...
It was gone. We had to replace it all. So this is called the body bolster. This is actually where the wheels go, and the weight of the car is carried by that. If we can look back here a little bit, this part here is called a queen post, very similar to like an old bridge. If you had one post, it was a king post. If you had two, it was a queen post. The beam going across the car is called a needle beam. That helps to hold up the center of the car. This car had about a 4-inch sag in the center and the floor until I put these on. It helped quite a bit. The side carries most of the strength in the car. There was no strength in the center of the floor until we put these beams in. Now, there's a rod, they're laying on the floor here, that goes through here and comes up and has to hook here, and that's what this part's all about. This is called a truss rod anchor. And it originally went like so. It goes around here like this, screws into the bottom of the car, and these 3 bolts here will go through it. Now, this rod gets welded to the truss rods, so it goes from here through the queen post to a turnbuckle and up to the other side. And this forms the tension member for the truss on the side of the car. It's what helps hold it up.
It's almost like building a bridge in
Exactly.
reverse.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those were all gone. We had to have those parts made.
And that's all part of getting ready to put it actually on
On the
wheels.
car. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. This will be about the last step, and it could go on wheels after this.
Well, we're going to now travel inside the car for a brief look at the vestibule. I'm going to have Dan close up the porch on me here in a few minutes, and we're going to talk about some of the things inside and look from the inside out briefly. We're standing here inside the vestibule, Dan, and brings back some memories, doesn't it?
A lot of memories, yes.
Now, your family spent a lot of time hanging up the coats in this area before
Right.
they entered the cabin, so to speak.
Right. And when we first rented the car, there was an ice box in this corner
Mm-hmm.
before we had electricity.
And so actually this was not only served as you hang up a coat, but you also kept the soda cold out here.
That's true.
Yeah. Now, much of the interior looks to be in pretty good shape.
Yes, the interior is in good shape. When Glenn did a survey of the car, he was impressed with the condition. We didn't move any walls or anything. We've had a few coats of paint, but other than that, a lot hasn't been tampered with.
And so probably not much is going to be some dressing up, but possibly not as much replacing on the inside of the car.
That's correct.
Now, as we close out, I will play the part of the conductor, Dan, and I want to thank everybody for being with us tonight on our second installment. On our third installment, we'll be moving on the inside. We'll probably have the canvas on, the roof, and it'll start to take some different shapes.
Yes.
But if I'm playing the conductor, I would be standing here. You would be one of our passengers, or you would actually go through and say goodnight to everybody by closing the doors on me here. And the doors are kind of neat. So when you close the doors, you'll just be grabbing them from one side, but both close.
Okay.
That's amazing.
That's right.
And so with that, I will say goodnight, and we'll see you next time with Car 26. Welcome to Glacier Transit and Storage. I'm Mike Briggs with TV3. We're bringing you a special program. We are talking about the continued redevelopment of Interurban car number 26. You see this behind me, and we're going to be talking about the continued remodeling and refurbishing of this car that ran in the city of Plymouth many years ago. I have with me Dan Dodens. And Dan, this was your summer cottage.
Yes, you're right, Mike. We owned the car for 45 years and used it as a summer cottage.
And it ran actually in the city of Plymouth many years ago.
Yes, between 1908 and 1938, it ran in Plymouth.
Yeah, so for 30 years, it actually ran a route that ran from Elkhart Lake through Plymouth to Sheboygan.
Yes.
And it would pick up passengers along the way and drop them off on the way back.
Correct.
And your family used it as a summer cottage, and then you have given it to East Troy. Is that correct?
Our family donated the car to the Friends of the East Troy Railroad Museum.
And now it's in the process of restoration.
Correct.
Now, some of the things that if people have been following this series, this is the third series. Work has begun on this in November of 1998. Is that correct?
November 30th, right.
And things started up, and so we've been at this a little over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And things sure have changed, haven't they?
Yes, very much so.
Some of the latest addition is the very top of the car now has a canvas top.
Yes, Glenn put a new canvas top on the car, which was what the car had when it was new. Mm-hmm. And he's put a coat of paint on it also.
And the coat of paint is a mustard color that I understand is what we believe to be the original color, and this is the completed color of that top. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So the canvas actually is the color that it's going to stay, and it has been tacked down. It is not glued down. Is that correct?
It's just stretched and tacked.
And it has been stretched, it has been tacked, it has been painted.
Yes.
And some of the other items that have been completed are the windows directly behind me. Mm-hmm.
You can see these.
You can see the finished windows.
These are oak windows, and they're in place all around the car.
And so they actually also are carrying what would be a finished color. Mm-hmm. May take another coat of varnish or shellac. I don't know which would be the correct term, but another coating, I would say.
Right, but they'll be natural finish.
Yes. Now, some of the things that will change is that there's coats of paint that are going to go on. We'll talk more about that a little later.
Yes.
But things are progressing. I hope you're pleased with the way things are going.
Oh, very much so.
And we have a target date. I'll bring that up now. I was going to wait to the end, but we have some target dates that we're shooting for. Right now, if you're watching, we're doing this on a cold winter day in January, but by October is what you're targeting to be completed.
Yes, Glenn estimates that he'll be finished in October.
Now, we probably should bring on the master craftsman here. I'm going to ask Glenn to come over. Glenn, I want to welcome you back. People who have been following the show know you. But to inform everyone, you came on a little over a year ago, and you are in the process you are the man behind the wood, so to speak.
Pretty much the person doing the work, yeah, or directing it.
What I would like to do is, at the very least, talk about, center on a bit on how this all worked. This when people talk about cars and it goes on a track, you think you need an engine to pull it, a caboose at the end. That's not at all how this worked. And you brought me some pictures with some explanation.
Okay, sure. These were self-propelled cars, Mike. This was electric railroading, and it started to come about in the 1890s. And by 1900, these lines were building out into the countryside, and they became interurban railroads. But they were self-propelled cars run off of electricity from a central power station. And in some of the pictures, you can see some of it. There was a wire up ahead, or up above, I should say, with a little wheel that collected the current, went through the pole, and then down inside the car, and then out through the wheels and into the rails. That completed the circuit. The little wheel is a trolley, hence the name trolleys. That's how they got their name. If you can see it in this picture, this was downtown Plymouth. This is looking east on Mill Street here. This, I believe, is Stafford Street. And here's the wire going around the corner. The car ran around the corner this way, and the little wheel followed the wire and picked up the current. It was 600 volts, direct current, DC.
And so when we talk about direct current, to people who don't work with electricity, direct current is the same as the battery on your car is 12 volts.
Flashlights.
Yeah. So you actually start your car with a 12-volt battery. This ran on 600 volts, so it's a bit larger and more powerful than what starts your car up in the morning.
Right. The speed was controlled inside the car. There was what they called a controller. It was a big rotary switch. People that remember riding the car will remember the motorman turning a crank, or if you've ever been to New Orleans and ridden the streetcars there, well, that crank is a big rotary switch. And underneath the car, on the other side, not in this picture, there's resistors. And when he starts out, he has a lot of resistance in the circuit, and the car goes kind of slow. And as he picks up speed, he keeps moving the controller, and that keeps shorting out the resistance till it's all gone.
Yeah, until you're getting all 600 volts.
Yeah, it's basically like a rheostat on your model trains, only it went in steps. So.
Now, I would like to have you to pass me a couple pictures, if you would,
Well, sure.
And then we're going to move back down this way just a little bit.
Okay. A lot of people have asked. Yeah, these are the trucks for the car. These are actually pictures taken at the museum in East Troy. These are the actual trucks that are going to go under the car. This is a Brill Model 27E truck. They had electric motors, one on each axle. This motor's been removed. This motor's still in place. Here's a little bit better picture.
Okay.
There's a big electric motor here that was direct connected to a gear that was on the axle. Here's the gear for the other side. And here's a little end view of the same thing. The motor is here, and it actually hangs on the axles and drives through this gear. The reason the motor is mounted to the axle is to keep the gears in alignment.
Yeah, to keep everything running right. Now, I'm going to back away just a step, and we'll see exactly where this is going to be mounted when this is completed. And so as I back away, we're going to take our focus down to the bottom of the car here, and if you pointed at that, there's what we're talking about, and you see those 3 screws or bolts.
These are parts that we had to replicate. This was all iron work that was removed when the car was sold to become a cottage. The railroad removed this stuff and sold it for scrap metal. So we redid this. This is a part that's known as the body bolster, and it's actually what supports the car. This sits on top of those wheels. You can see in the picture here, right there is the same part. And that's what the car sits on top of the trucks.
And so I'm gonna bring Dan over here, and he knows a little bit about what East Troy is actually creating. So as we speak, East Troy is actually doing some things, aren't they?
Yes, they're starting to work on some of the parts for these trucks, and they're also working on the controllers.
Now the controllers, we had them here in the very beginning, and it looked like such a shamble of items that I did not understand what I was looking at, or we would have taken a shot of it earlier. But now it's down in East Troy, and you say someone's rebuilding it.
Yes. One of the volunteers has almost completed one already, he told me, and you'll be starting on the other one.
And so to refresh my memory, there are actually 4 motors that ran this car.
Correct.
And so what we're looking at here on my chest is one of 2. There are actually 2 motors on this set of wheels and 2 motors on the back set of wheels.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's and it all ran on this 600 volts of power.
Yes.
Now, when you had it as a cottage, you actually put electricity in yourself.
Yes, the electricity came through about 1948.
And so you got it in 38, and you went without electricity until the electric lines came through.
Yes,
Now, you did not run on DC current, though. You ran on regular household current.
regular AC household current, yes.
And so you had to run, you ran new wiring?
We had an electrician down, and he wired the overhead lights so we could use those for illumination.
Mm-hmm.
And he put some sockets in the wall so we could plug in appliances, and he put in a special outlet for the electric stove.
Okay, and then you ran on 110, I guess what a normal family home ran on,
Yes.
until you decided to give it back.
Right. Then the electric company came and took down the wire. And
Yeah, and now we're spending all of our time to change it back to DC again.
correct.
We're going to go in the car in just a moment, and we're going to talk about some of the new wiring that's gone on and some of the changes that have gone on inside the vehicle.
Fine.
Okay, I'm looking at, I guess, the vestibule is the best term I can use,
Yeah.
Glenn. And we're looking at some, are those wires I'm looking at? I guess I should ask.
Yeah, those are the original main power feed. Now, remember we talked about the trolley running on the wire up
Yeah.
on the roof?
Yeah.
And well, the power comes in on this wire. There was a switch mounted here, a big circuit breaker knife switch right here. Went through that, and then it goes into this wire, wraps around, and it goes inside the car.
And we'll look at that in a moment. But now this is where 600 volts came in.
Right.
Is that correct? So
Right.
it came from the trolley up above, down through these wires, and you threw a switch here to.
There was a big off-on switch here.
the big off-on
yeah,
switch.
if you wanted everything to shut off, you turn this off.
Now 600 volts would send an arc, particularly DC, current.
And that is a real problem with DC.
I would think that would be a dangerous problem.
It is, and it has to be specially shielded, and
Sure.
and you have to have some precaution in using it.
And so changing it from when Dan had household current running through it back to DC, it's actually forcing you to rewire the entire show.
Right, and the lights were wired differently too. The interior lights. We'll talk about that when we get inside.
Yeah. And so we're going to back in, and this is where your conductor did his job. He would close these doors. Notice how I pull on one side and they both come closed. I mean, you can't make them like that today.
No.
and he would close the doors, and he would operate from the front here.
Right.
And then when he get to the other end, he'd go to the other front.
And turn the switch on at
Turn
the other
the
end.
switch on at the other end.
And away they went.
Well, we're going to just walk on in then. We'll play the part of the conductor visiting everyone. And as we walk in here, we can actually, between us, right over here is the continuation of that wire. As you
Coming
look
up the
right
rope.
down here. And that wire goes all the way down through the floor.
Right.
And
That's what goes into the resistors and into the motors, and what actually
that's the
makes car go.
transformer.
Right.
And that's how made the car go forward.
Right.
And at whatever speed was directed. And so the conductor out here started things up, and the power all goes down inside.
Right.
Now, we have a lot of wires hanging here. I guess I should point out that if you look up here, there are 3 separate gray wires, and then there's one darker wire. That looks like a original
That's an
wire.
original. I haven't replaced yet. I believe that's for the headlight circuit.
Uh-huh.
I'm not quite sure, but these are the original lights that were in the car.
Uh-huh.
And there was just a bare bulb sticking out of here at every one of these places where there's a light hanging down.
And so you've run the wires back through is what you've done. And so as we focus up here, we see a lot of different parts. And I think that's what's neat. We have original woodwork, and that's similar to the original orange. Is that correct, Juan?
Right. Dan's family painted the ceiling orange. Originally, it was kind of a cream color. You can see a little bit of the yellow up here. It's actually better behind the number there. That's closer to the right color.
Okay, you were talking about 5 layers of paint
On the exterior.
on the exterior.
Yeah. Now, on the interior, this was the original color for the interior ceilings. Later, the railroad painted it this apple green color, which was real common, and Dan's family painted it that orange.
And so we're actually going to take it completely back, aren't you?
Right, to the cream-colored ceilings.
And so the original 1908-26.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's it.
Yeah.
Right there. Put on at the factory.
Uh-huh. Now tell me a little bit about some of the woodwork that you're restoring as we look at the
Well,
lower level
okay.
here.
We had to take all of this out to repair the framing. I
Uh-huh.
remember some of the past episodes, we had big holes in the wall where things were taken out. So now that the original finish has been stripped off of this, we're starting to nail that back in.
Mm-hmm.
Same behind you there. Some of the original finish is off of that.
Right.
And it's going to need a fair amount of sanding and stuff. This will be the original color, like these windows here.
Yeah, this is the original color, and it's been finished. It has a coat, at least one coat of sealer on it,
Right.
and it's going to take another one out
Yeah,
of that.
we're going to use a regular drying oil varnish, a regular, what you would think of as a varnish.
Mhm.
On the exterior, we'll use marine varnish. Shellac just doesn't hold up. If we did the car in shellac again, within 10 years, it would be black like it was before.
Yeah.
So we want it to stay this way, so we're actually going to use varnish.
If we could focus on some other wires that are coming in.
Okay.
We know these wires are your lights,
Right.
and you had 600 volts coming through.
These
you
lights.
were telling me stories about the lights.
Yeah, well, with the lights, because it was 600 volts, there was no way of stepping it down. That's the beauty to AC electricity. With a transformer, you can step it down. DC, you can't. So what they would do is they would run 5 bulbs in series, and then the voltage on each bulb would be 1/5 of the 600.
Right,
600.
right.
And so it'd be around 110 volts on each bulb, and it would work fine.
And so they had 110 volt DC bulbs, and you had to run 5 in a row.
5 in a row.
Always 5.
Always 5 in a row. So when you trace these wiring circuits, you have to look for where's the 5 bulbs.
Right, right.
And there's 9 on this side of the car, and there's 10 on the other side of the car. The 10th bulb here was in the vestibules, and they had the ability to turn that one on or off to not blind the motorman.
Sure.
So he turned his off, and the conductor had the rear one on for
Mhm.
letting you get on the train.
I see. Now tell me about these wires then, if you would.
Well, there was a call button to signal to the conductor that you wanted to get off at the next stop. And
Right.
This is a low voltage circuit. This actually had a battery that was mounted under a little seat in the corner over here.
Oh,
There
so
was a
it ran
dry
off
cell
of a different,
battery.
just a battery.
Just a dry cell battery, about 6 volts.
Uh-huh.
And between the windows here was a little switch. And these wires were just screwed to these wood screws,
Uh-huh.
wrapped around the wood screws.
That's right.
And let's see, there's that other piece
And the rest
behind
of
you.
it, the rest of it's
Okay.
here.
This piece of trim went over it. And when you pushed on this button here,
It actually completed the circuit.
yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
grade school science project.
Sure it is. Sure it is. Whether you, yeah, it is. It's
It
just, it's very
So,
simplistic, and
Yeah.
so
see, this trim went over there, and you just
yeah,
push the
I'll hold
button.
it. Yeah, and so this actually was here,
Yeah.
and what you're holding laid behind it,
Behind
and
it.
so when I pushed that silver button, I actually was completing the circuit, and that
The
told the,
buzzer rang.
the conductor that you wanted off at the next stop.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
And this goes between all the seats. There's a
Uh-huh.
button.
Uh-huh.
Now, there's one last thing. You see some wires hanging up here.
Yeah, we're gonna go down. We'll look at right over. We'll walk down here by Dan and look
Okay.
at those.
Well, these wires, remember I was telling you there had to be 5 bulbs in series?
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 marker lights at each end of the car. So if you had 2 of them on, you needed to have 3 bulbs somewhere else. These are the 3 bulbs. There's 2 in this compartment and 1 in the other.
Uh-huh.
And if you turn the markers on at the front and the rear of the car, only this light was lit.
I'll be darned.
So,
They had it figured out.
well, it was like, say, it's a mystery to have to run around and try and find where's that 5th bulb.
Well, yeah. Now we're going to take just a moment and look at the architecture of the roof, because it looks a little different, Dan, than when you had as a summer cottage. We pulled a few things away,
Right.
but the architecture of the roof remains, and that arc is what I find just beautiful. That people would take that time in the early 1900s to create such a thing.
Well, it was just your basic carpentry.
Yeah.
All this decoration just covered up all the joints.
Mhm.
Moldings were there to cover the carpenter's mistakes.
Sure.
And this wall actually was taken out. This wall was in pretty bad shape, so I took it out from here over, and we glued it back together, put it in. You notice it's kind of loose.
Yeah.
The only thing that holds it in is the trim on each side of it.
Oh.
And as the car goes down the railroad tracks, it twists and turns and creaks and groans, and this wall has to be loose to slide in and out.
If it would get loose anyway.
Yeah, it would get loose anyway.
Sure. Sure.
And, you know, all of this trim and everything, well, you can see where the wire was put in here.
Well, sure.
Just like the electricians in a house, they just start chopping holes and plumbers wherever stuff needs to go.
Yeah.
So
Now, if we could focus low again, there's a few things that they're mentioning. We have what looks to be one of the outlets that.
Dan's family.
Am I correct, Dan? we have what was an outlet when it was running 110. When it was running a household current right here, and we can see where a seat. And seats are being prepared also in East Roy.
Right.
There will be seats put in, and they mounted on these holes here, and also then bolted to the ground here. But tell me about some of the holes in the floor. There's a plan behind this.
Oh yeah, these holes right here were for the heaters. There was a little coal stove in the smoking compartment that heated up hot water and steam, and the pipes ran. They came through the floor. And they ran back and forth along this piece. This is called a truss plank. And they went to the other end of the car, came back and forth and looped and went through here, came up the other side of the car.
So this
and that was the original heat in the car.
This car was a heated car in the winter.
Right.
And it was heated with hot water heat.
Yeah, a little coal stove mounted in this other room.
And the coal stove probably was enough to keep things warm in the smoking area.
Well, the pipes ran all the way through. That's what the mouse hole is right here.
Oh.
The pipes actually ran through and into the other room. This is just where they transferred from one side of the car to the other.
Oh,
and there's some other holes here. These holes were for the governor for the air compressor. Now, this car had air brakes, and it was an electric air compressor mounted under the car. And the pressure switch that turned it on and off was mounted in the car so it wouldn't freeze in the winter. And it was hidden underneath a seat. There was a fixed seat here.
Well,
this is where it came through.
And so, explain again, it had air brakes, and so you had a compressor that actually, an electric compressor, that that's what was used for brake stopping. Okay, we knew how to you could get it going by the four motors, but you had to have a way of slowing it down.
Right.
And you did that with air brakes.
Right. So that was standard air brakes like on steam railroads, same kind of thing. Matter of fact, behind you is where the main regulator valve for the air brakes was mounted.
I'm going to back up just a little more here.
That's what all these holes are for.
Once again?
That was the main regulator valve for the air brakes.
Okay.
So when the motorman applied the brakes, there was a regulator here, which actually let air into the brake cylinder and stuff, and that was mounted in the car so it wouldn't freeze also. That's what all these holes are for. Pipes coming up through there.
Now, we're going to just very slowly direct ourselves up above again. This again is the original woodwork.
Right.
Some of the woodwork you had to reconstruct, but we are dealing with original woodwork here. Now, there is plywood that is going to be reattached to this ceiling. Am I correct?
Right.
And we have some of the plywood down below here. We'll get down to that in just a moment, but it's going to be retacked and finished.
Right. There was it needs to be repaired. Some of the veneers are a little loose, and we need to glue them back together.
Well, we're going to roll this over if we could, and we'll look at it because it's not the normal plywood that we would think. And notice we're seeing a couple different colors again.
Right.
Now explain the different colors. I think the small stripe in the middle probably is original.
This here there was a piece of trim over this that was there from the beginning, so this was never painted. And right here, there was a piece of trim that held advertising cards. There was cards, you remember writing, and they would stick underneath here. And this piece of trim was removed when the railroad painted the ceiling this apple green. But Dan's family never removed it, and they just painted the ceiling orange.
Sure. And now this gets tacked up, not on the ceiling, though, does it? It's on the edge.
This goes down in the lower ceiling here.
Yeah.
So you can see here some of the veneers that are lifting. You know, these need to be repaired, some of the loose ones here.
Well, this is not just the normal run-of-the-mill plywood, though. We'll lay it back here. It is, it was made by the company.
Right. It's 3 plies.
And it would go
right in here.
Right here. This covers this area.
Right.
And it's 3 ply, but it was made at the company, you would say.
Right. It was made there at Cincinnati Car Company in a press. They glued it together over that form.
And so they actually had a curve that they glued it over.
Right.
And so it held that curvature.
Yeah. One of the things at the factory, when they do this kind of stuff, it's done in a different part of the factory. You know, there's a cabinet shop there that does stuff like this and makes the trim and so on. And all these parts, when they get to the erecting room where the car is assembled, they have to have some kind of number on them. And that was called a shop order number. When you ordered a car from a builder, it was given a order, and everything was done. And behind Gary is the shop order number written on that ceiling panel.
They actually original numbers written in 1908
by the original workers.
Yeah. And we'll focus over here. We can see them right here.
So, there it is. 845.
845 must have been the actual number of this piece of plywood, and then they knew.
Well, it was the order number that these cars were built under.
Okay.
So there was all these parts, everything here, the 3 cars that were ordered, that was order number 845 from Cincinnati Car Company.
Oh,
so that's kind of fun when you find that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Now we're gonna move all around again. We're going back up above and talk about some of the finished items that will be occurring probably in the next few months.
Right.
If you would just take my focus, you have the plywood that you're going to fix up and put here.
Cover here.
And then what?
There's the windowsill has to go in next.
Okay.
When the windowsill goes in, there's a piece of trim over this. That's just poplar, and then there's a finished piece of oak that goes on that. That's
poplar and then oak.
And then oak, the interior trim, and then there's oak strips here, and that actually holds the windows in place, and it's got a notch for the shades and so on. Up above here, there's another piece of oak that runs the length of the car, and that'll trim off all of this. Then the ceiling panel. There's some moldings here and here. We have all these parts. They just need to be refinished and reinstalled.
Now, when we look way up above here, the window, there were windows here.
There was windows in here. Yeah, we took those out. We're refinishing those.
And some of the windows you had to find, they weren't all good windows. How many?
Yeah, well, I have to
half?
take another look at them yet.
Yeah.
The bottom of them is in pretty bad shape, and it's got water stains and stuff. And we're going to see if we can use them. If not, I may have to make a new bottom piece.
Okay.
It appears that the tops are in pretty good shape. They aren't too badly weather beaten.
So as we look through the top here, we can see the overhang. Will there be anything on that overhang as we look through the window?
That'll all be painted yellow up there.
Okay.
And that's the original color for the car, you know, for the era that we're going to do.
Now we had that's going to be a bright
yellow,
almost a canary yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the outside is going to be almost the orange.
Very close.
That we've been kind of seeing here.
Yeah. Like the color postcards that we had, Russ Porter's painting, that's very close to the original colors, and that is the original paint scheme.
Now,
see.
You will refinish the floor.
The floor will just be painted,
Yeah.
like it was.
And it was painted. It wasn't a.
No, it's a fir floor, and if it was oak, I'd say it was going to be varnished, but the fact that it's a fir floor makes me think that it was just painted. From what I can see, it looks like the original color was kind of a dark olive green, what I see under this seat.
Actually, you've spent a lot of time analyzing colors. That's a show in itself.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
We'll have to do that on another one. We haven't got time today. But as we look along the edge here, we have the things that have been completed. This is the original.
That's the original interior.
And it's really nice. The original interior really is in pretty good shape.
Surprisingly, you know, I mean, that was one of the things that impressed me about this car, was how little it had been modified over the years. Well, you figure it was a summer cottage for 60 years.
Yeah.
It was only a railroad car for 30.
Right, and so we're standing in something 90 years old.
Yeah.
And 30 of it in use as
a cottage, you know, and all the walls are still here.
Yeah.
So.
Now, as we talk around the deadline, at what point the finish, you'll be doing some painting in here sometime late spring?
Yeah, what I'm shooting for is by the end of June to have everything painted and varnished. And that'll leave me some time over the summer to make the steps and the coupler mounts and some of that kind of stuff before I leave.
Yeah, we had to take the steps out, and of course, the cattle guards is what I would call it. Those have to be redone and put in front, actually on both ends. What's neat about this car is both ends are going to look the same.
Yeah. You know, it'd be hard to tell if it's coming or going.
Yeah, and it doesn't know either. Yeah. Well, as we start to close down on this, we're going to wander down there with Dan.
Okay.
And we're just going to take just a moment of looking at all the differences that this has given us, and all the things that have changed. Has to be so impressive to you, Dan, because you saw it in your family. It's part of your family, and now it's being being redone altogether again.
Yes, Glenn's work is very impressive. We're very pleased with the way he's handling this project.
And if we wrap up here, could you just give me an idea financially how we're doing? You had some certain numbers in mind. It looks like you're going to be coming in on those numbers.
Yes, when we started the project, we estimated we would need $280,000 to complete the project. We have raised $130,000 to date, and we still have some foundations that we're waiting to hear from.
Oh, good.
So we're optimistic that we will get enough money to finish the project. Because of the volunteer work that we're getting and donations from the friends, the total budget might be a little less than 280.
So we're closing in on the halfway mark
Yes.
as far as financially.
We're very close to halfway.
And we're looking to October of 2000 to have everything together and looking at a completion.
Right. In October of 2000, we anticipate this car will be leaving Plymouth, going to the museum, and then they will put the undercarriage parts
Sure.
on, and hopefully by the spring of 2001, it'll be on the rails and operating.
That'd be great. Well, we're going to close out this one. I want to thank Glenn, Dan for being with me again.
Thank you for coming.
We're going to be back again sometime in the spring now. We'll probably come back sometime when it warms up a little bit, and we'll be able to see some major changes on the inside and outside as we start putting coats of paint on.
Definitely.
So I would thank everyone for being with us. We'll see you next time with the continuation of this car number 26. I want to welcome everyone to a bit of a reunion here at Interurban Car 26. I'm Mike Briggs. I'm coming to you from just off Main Street in Plymouth, Wisconsin. I'm at the a building here where I have Interurban Car 26 has been rebuilt, and I have some special guests with me today, as there's a group of people that have come into town that have ridden on the Interurban car. The Interurban car ran from 1908 to 1938, and actually Herman Meansfeld and Maybelle Meyer, your father actually worked on the Interurban car. Is that correct, Herman?
Right.
And when did he actually work in this business?
From 1908 to 1967.
So he spent his entire life running these cars. And Maybelle, you must remember your father getting up and going to work and driving these every day.
Yes, I do.
And you actually had to have ridden on it yourself, didn't you?
Oh, yes. My brother and I would ride with him out to Plymouth and back again. We thought that was a big deal.
And where did you live at the time of riding it? Did you live in Sheboygan?
Yes, we lived in Sheboygan.
And yourself, your brother, your father drove it all the way through to Plymouth and back, or all the way to Elkhart Lake?
Well, to Plymouth, and he drove the gravel train to Elkhart Lake in summer.
Now, what kind of people, what kind of job did you have, first of all, riding with your father on here? You had some little chores, I'm sure, that he had you take care of.
Yeah, I used to switch the cars. Used to blow the whistle at the whistle stops. Raise and lower the trolleys. Also turn the seats from one direction to the other direction when the car went back.
Now, one of the things that's a misnomer is that people would think that you turn the car around, but you actually turn the seats around. Is that correct?
Seats, and they took the thing from the front, and then they carried it to the other end, and what made the car go.
So actually, you made the front the back and the back the front.
Yeah.
You really never turned the car
No,
around.
all they did was change the trolley.
Now, what kind of activities did you do when you rode?
Well, like my brother said, he would blow the whistle once, and then I'd blow it the next time. We took turns doing that.
Now, how many when you made the normal stops? Were there many stops on the route? Did you stop at every intersection? What
Not
were
every
the rules?
intersection, but there were quite a few stops.
Now, I think that if I'm not mistaken, Herman, your father never had an accident. Is that correct?
That's right.
So, this Interurban car ran for just about 30 years, and in 30 years, your father never had a crack up with it.
Never.
Now, there had to be some close calls.
Well, yeah, I imagine so, but never a serious accident.
Well, this was actually the time frame is just before the automobile kind of wiped out the interurban car business. So most of the problems you had were with cattle, with horses, and whatnot. Am I correct?
Right. That's right. The only thing I can remember at Kohler had what they call a trestle. One time a dog was on the middle of the trestle. My dad blew the horn at him. The dog wouldn't move. My dad had to get out of the train, walk in the trestle, pick the dog up, come back, and get on the train to go again. There were no guardrails on the trestle. You only had about 8 or 10 inches where you walked on and you walked on the track. And it was a long way down. So I don't think I would have did it.
That was a scary day. Now, what kind of people actually rode this during the day?
Well, I think everybody, workers and people, even people that went to school, all that Falls Normal School.
People went to the Falls Normal to be school teachers, and so they might live in Plymouth and ride it every day.
That's right.
And you had workers that would ride it, get on in the morning to go to work at Kohler, and then get on it again in the afternoon to come home.
Right. And after he was through driving the streetcar, when he took those off, then he drove the city bus, and he had a perfect record driving the city bus.
Okay, so the transition seemed to work
Right.
Quite well.
Very well.
Now, you actually were in the driving business yourself, weren't you, Herman?
Yes. I drove cab for 2.5 years in Sheboygan. After that, then I worked at Kohler.
Now, I was given the hint that when you drove cab, you started out at a wage that was similar to your father's after 30 years in the interurban car business.
Yes, I remember when I first started driving cab, I earned as much money as my father did, and he was 30-some-odd years in the interurban business.
I think the numbers that I was given, like $30 a week, is that correct, to drive, to be the boss here? Is that about right? But it probably didn't cost that much to ride, though, either. You see, things were different then.
Oh, yeah, much cheaper.
A dime maybe would get you the full length.
I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, a dime would get to the full length. A nickel was the going fare. From Sheboygan to Kohler was a nickel. From Sheboygan to Sheboygan Falls, I think was 7 cents.
Things have changed dramatically since
Yes.
then. Traveling has changed dramatically, hasn't it? I find it nostalgic to look at this, but having ridden it, what kind of memories come back?
Very good memories, very fond memories.
You spent many, many days riding with your father.
Right.
Bringing lunch. Did you bring lunch on? Did you stop for lunch? What was the
When
normal
he
plan?
drove gravel train, then we would bring his lunch. My brother and I would go down to the corner. We'd put it on a streetcar, and they'd transfer it out to him on the gravel train. But otherwise, when he rode the interurban, that he usually got the chance to get home.
Okay, he was able to get home for lunch.
Yes.
Now, when did you start in the morning? When did the train actually, the interurban car actually start up? Did
Very
it-
early.
6 o'clock?
Oh,
5
I
o'clock?
think before, up 5, I
I
think.
think around 5 a.m.
So at 5 a.m. Things would start traveling, and it just had a circuit that ran
Right.
continuously
Right.
until dark.
Oh, late at night. They had service at night yet.
They did.
Yes.
So after dark, it
After
would
dark.
still run.
Yes.
Yeah, because, what was it, when Pa used to sleep in Plymouth?
Yes.
He used to drive the interurban car. The last car come from Elkhart Lake, and I think that came into Plymouth, and I think that got into Plymouth around 10 o'clock at night.
And
And
he would stay over
He would
here.
stay in Plymouth, and the next morning he would leave at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and take the first load into Kohler. Then he come to Sheboygan and take a load from Sheboygan up to Kohler.
Everybody came to Cole. That was a big
Right.
working hub,
Yes.
wasn't it? Yeah. Now, it was during those years that there were no cars, and so this was the lifestyle.
That's right.
And so you actually rode it and watched people that made their life riding back and forth from work or from business or for shopping.
Right.
Even. People would actually get on it in Plymouth and ride it to Sheboygan to shop.
That's right.
Shop at Frangie Company.
Yes.
Okay, Crangy was on for that.
That's
Frangie
right.
was a big one.
Now, were there do people haul goods to sell on the interurban car? Would you see people get on with their vegetables, their eggs, their milk? Did it haul anything other than people? You recall, or was it just for people? I'm not sure.
No, I don't recall.
I don't think so.
No.
Somebody told me that they used to haul cheese and whatever, milk, but I can't recall them hauling.
Primarily, it was just a people
Yes.
mover.
That's
Okay,
right.
yes. Now, in the wintertime, it had to be terribly cold, was it not, on here? Or they did have heat,
They had some heat, yes.
but it had to be cold on at least one end of this all the time. So you'd have to dress very warmly in the wintertime, and then it would be very warm in the summer.
That's right.
And were you rode it year-round? It drove year-round, rather.
That's right.
And did they have plows that cleared the rails? How did they do that?
They had plows right on the car.
Oh, they would put a plow in the front of the car.
That's right.
But if the snow got too deep, they had a work car. And the work car went out and they plowed the snow.
Okay.
If the work car jumped the track, then the guys that worked on there, they had to get out with the jack and jack it up and put it back on the track.
Okay.
In the meantime, when he went back in, my dad used to back the work car up. Fellows used to lay on the floor and hold the coal stove. Each one got a hold of a leg. He hit the snowbank again. If they made it through, fine. If they didn't, they had to go out and shovel. Well, then they let the stove go. But the next time they hit the bank again, they had to go inside and hold the stove again. You remember that? Remember Pa saying that?
So they'd have to hold the stove so it wouldn't tip over, jar
Right.
loose. And they would keep jamming their way through and break through the snow so they could keep it on the track.
Right.
Did the train ever jump track when you were on?
Not when we were on.
Not when you were riding.
No.
Not when we were on.
They always cleared the snow for
Yeah.
the interurban car. Now, your father actually started in the business on an interurban car in 1908, and he was part of that until 38 when it closed.
When he first started, they had horses, a couple horses.
The
for a
same
couple
company
months.
had horses for the
Yes,
same.
and then a couple months later, and they switched to the regular trolley car. We drove all that while.
So when the trolley car started, he was the man
That's right.
until it quit again.
That's right.
That would be an exciting time, and it has to be really memorable to come back and see
Oh, yes,
things here.
it is. Very.
And you must recognize some people around here.
Yes, we do.
Well, we're going to bring some more people on now, so I'm going to ask Dan, who's manning the camera for me today, to come here at Interurban Car 26. I've got a couple other guests. I got Doris Phillips and Carita Klein, and both of these people rode the I'm sorry, Doris. Both of these people rode the Interurban car just a few years ago. What year was it, Doris, that you were riding the car?
Well, I basically rode it to normal school in 1929-30.
So you actually, did you live in Plymouth?
No, I lived in Kohler,
So you lived in Kohler, and
and
every...
I took the normal school was in Sheboygan Falls, and then I also rode it into Sheboygan to shop.
And so every morning, you would get on the Interurban car and
On
ride
the
it
days that I rode, when it was good weather, I walked.
in? Yeah, that's right. Now, that means that you went to become a school teacher, is that correct?
And that's exactly right. And I taught school from 1930 to 1996. 1992.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time in the school business.
Well,
But it all started with the normal. So for
That's
about
right.
2 years, am I correct?
1 year.
1 year, you spent time on days riding the car back and forth to normal.
that's right. To the
Now-
normal school.
Carita? Is that correct? Now, you rode the car...
At 37 and 38, as long as it
The
was.
last 2 years of the car, is that correct?
I did. I drove from Sheboygan then to Sheboygan Falls also to go to County Normal School.
Okay, so you actually did the reverse. You lived in Sheboygan and rode it to Sheboygan Falls. And Doris, you lived in Kohler and rode it to Sheboygan Falls. And so you must have also become a teacher.
I did.
You did. Well,
In the-
congratulations.
In the county, yes.
So you have
She was my supervising teacher too in the county.
the boss.
Yeah,
The boss.
later
That's
on.
right, Doris. That's right. Now, riding the car during the winter was when you mostly rode it, Doris? And it was very cold on the car or not?
Well,
They had
yes,
heat, but-
I don't remember that it was that cold, but because it was better than walking.
Sure. Now, you must not have rode it far if in the summer you could walk it. How long was the distance? 3-4 miles?
I've got to think. It was about 4 miles.
About 4 miles, and it would take, it rumbled along just a very few minutes. It swayed a little from side to side. It's sort of like a boat, maybe, is it? Yeah. Now,
And I have another thing to add.
yes, please.
As the streetcar turned westward and coming through Kohler, well, I now own part of that land across which the Kohler, this transport went, and 15 feet were given to our side and 15 feet to the neighbors.
Uh-huh.
So now I'm living on the land on the streetcar, you know.
You live on the land that you used to ride
Yes,
on.
yes, correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
No.
And that's the only comment. I thought that was different.
Well, it was certainly a nice time for you in Sheboygan and in Kohler to be able to go to school.
Right.
Yes.
And otherwise,
and to go to
you would have been
Sheboygan.
isolated. You would
Right.
not have been able to go to the normal had you not had
No.
the interurban
Correct.
car.
And I had to walk a mile until I got to the point of Denton, Michigan, where I could pick it up.
Where you could pick it up. So
Snow, rain, sleet, or whatever. You had to be there.
you had to be there, or it was going to leave without you.
Right.
Now you rode it to school,
And I
and
rode it back.
you rode it back.
I just had to walk up a hill, a little hill in front of my house to the where it stopped.
So what I have here with me are two school teachers who a long educational career that was helped in start by Interurban Car 26.
Correct.
Car
That's
26.
exactly correct.
That's right.
We
So
needed that to get there.
That gave
we'll
us a
be
start.
bringing someone else in our 26. I have with me Tilly Mayer and Bob Zelm, and we've got a few other people that have ridden this car when it was in existence during those 30 years from 1908 to 1938. Is that correct, Bob?
That's right.
Now, Tilly, you happen to be the person that might be the oldest here.
I am the oldest here.
And at 97, you look great. But
Thank you.
But you have to tell me that the Interurban car looks great too, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Does
Yes,
it look close the way
Yeah.
it did,
Oh,
the way you
yes.
remember it?
Yeah,
Same color, and
yeah, yeah.
what is different about it? Do you see any differences, or is it so very
No.
close?
It's so very close.
Yes. Now, did you live in Plymouth
Yes,
all of your life?
all of my life.
So you've been in Plymouth a long time, I heard.
87 years.
Only 97 years. Now, that means that in the early 1900s, the Interurban car was your way to go to Crystal Lake, to
Yeah.
Sheboygan, to Sheboygan Falls.
Yeah.
You must have ridden it a lot.
Yes, we did. We went, when we was kids, we used to go to Crystal Lake and swimming.
So you would get on the car here in Plymouth and
Yeah.
ride it to Crystal Lake, get off at the Crystal Lake stop and go swimming,
Yeah,
and then after swimming, get back on and ride it home.
yeah.
And for a nickel, you could do that. Those were the days.
Those were the days. Those were the days.
No, Bob, you didn't. You haven't quite ridden it as much as Tilly, but you did ride the car.
Oh, a lot.
And
Because my grandparents lived in Sheboygan Falls,
right.
and I had two aunts and uncles on two different stops all the way up to Plymouth.
Oh.
So I would ride back and forth a lot.
And so, at what age were you hopping on this and jumping on? You must have only been 5 or 6 years old. You're a young man to be here riding this Interurban car.
I'm older than you think I am. Tilly's got me beat, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now you actually could buy one ticket and get on and off at will during the day. Is that correct?
I think it cost me a nickel to go from here to my grandparents. If you know where the point is,
Yeah.
at near Sheboygan Falls there, my grandparents lived just down the street. So I would ride that far and back for a nickel.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, Tilly, you used to ride it to go dancing, I bet.
Well, sure, we used to go to Charlie Frank's.
Well, you did. Now, where was that?
That was that's where the car stopped, and we would go in there, and well, if you could buy whatever you wanted, you could even eat there.
At Charlie Frank.
Yeah,
And
and
they had-
they had a dance floor.
What?
We had dances there. We
then you would just get on there in the evening and go dancing.
Oh, sure.
That'd be great.
Well, actually, it was owned by the Lower,
Yes.
Charlie Frank's father-in-law.
Yeah.
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 And that would be the same Lowers that had
It was Lowers.
all the
when-
different families.
It was Lowers when we went there when, as kids.
See, that building burned down a couple of years ago. It was a tavern, a dance hall. It burnt down maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah.
And that's where you would go dancing then. And so now, did the Interurban car travel that late at night, or did you not stay out late?
Well, I can't just remember how.
You just don't want to tell everybody how late you stayed out, do you?
No, that isn't it.
But Bob, now tell me, when did they actually quit running in the evening? Did it run till 10 at night? Did
I
it
think
run?
right around 10 o'clock, something like that.
And you could catch the last ride in, huh? Otherwise, you had to wait till morning somewhere.
Or walk.
Or walk, yeah. Now, you also must have taken the train into Sheboygan to go shopping, is that correct?
Sure.
And when you went into Sheboygan, you would hop on in Plymouth. It would take an hour maybe.
Well, no, I don't think it took that long.
And then you would
But
go
they
down
had
to
a
Frankie.
depot, a streetcar depot in Sheboygan.
Okay. And then you would
And we'd go to the depot, and then we'd walk to where we'd want to go.
and you go shopping all day, and then get back on and ride it back.
Sure.
And was it a family activity? Would it be yourself and your parents, or just yourself and
My
some others
parents never, I don't remember my parents ever,
riding it? No.
no, I
But
don't
you would
think
go
so.
with other friends?
Oh, friends, sure.
Sure, there'd be.
Or even alone,
No, I bet you, Bob, you and a bunch of you guys would jump in and go to Sheboygan to have some fun, huh?
Very seldom that I'd go to Sheboygan.
Okay.
Only as far as Falls to my grandparents.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you would also go to Elkhart Lake?
Oh, sure.
What was Elkhart Lake known for back when you were riding in the car?
Swimming,
You would go swimming there at Elkhart
Oh,
Lake,
sure,
sure.
you could go
Is that
swimming.
what maybe now is known as Fireman's Park in that area? Well, they have several
I
different
think-
places to swim. It would be what was ever
Yeah.
closest when you got off,
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and how fast you could hit the water.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, Tilly, for 97 years in the city of Plymouth, you have gotten around.
Yeah, I've lived on North Street most of the time.
Is that right?
I was born on North Street,
And that's where, and it's just great.
and I'm back on North Street now.
Have you followed, Bob? Have you followed the reconstruction or the restoration?
Oh, yeah. I stop to see Glenn every once in a while.
Now, you remember it being this orange?
Yeah.
It was that bright. That's what surprises
Yeah.
me, that they
Well, I
had the
can
colors
remember
that could shine it up like
My
that.
dad was in the cheese factory where S&R is now.
Okay.
My dad had that factory, and we used to get milk in from Elkhart all the way into Plymouth. There was a platform built right next to the track, and the men from the factory would haul it over on a little wagon. They'd wash the cans and put them back on that platform, and at night they'd take it back again.
Okay. And so you got to see a lot of it going by.
Well, at that time we lived at the factory there. There were 2 trains and a streetcar went right past our window.
And you were going to say, Millie,
Huh?
that it was just a beautiful time to ride, and it was.
Yes, it was.
Have you stopped in before to see the car?
No.
This is your first look. It has changed dramatically. You can ask Bob. It
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
really changed from when I first saw it to today. Today it looks
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
new again.
Yeah.
You can almost feel it running
Oh, it's
again.
nice, yeah.
Yeah.
See, Bob, we used to live close to
Yeah.
your place
Sure.
on North Milwaukee Street. You lived almost across the street from us.
Yeah.
You lived on the corner.
I lived on the corner of
Yeah.
Main and North Milwaukee.
Yeah.
It was just a walk down
Well,
to
and
get on the
Western
train.
Avenue kind of turned right by our factory. There was
Okay.
my dad's cheese factory, the ice cream factory, the soda factory.
I want to thank both of you. We've had Bob and Tilly on here to talk about their recollections of Interurban Car 26, and it's been a great talking to you, Tilly and Bob. I want to stick around, enjoy the car, talk about the old times that we used to have on it, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now at Interurban Car 26, Lena Aldman, I want to thank you for talking to me. I was told that you were born and raised on a farm just outside of Plymouth. Is that correct?
A few miles south of Plymouth.
2 miles south of Plymouth, 3 miles south of Plymouth.
Mhm.
And what would bring you in to ride the car?
Well, we had relatives in
Elkhart. I went to visit them. My father's sister lived in Elkhart. My mother's aunt and uncle lived in Elkhart. And we would go to Sheboygan to do shopping.
Sure, and you would, you and your family, or
My mother,
your mother and you
my
would,
brothers,
would
my dad, they took us to the crossing.
we take in the crossing with horses?
Yeah.
With the horses? And you take it to the crossing, about 3 miles to the crossing, would it be? And then you would get off and get on the Interurban car, and you would determine whether you were going to Elkhart or whether you were going to Sheboygan.
Sometimes we took the car in town too. I mean, at Adams, where Adams is now.
Where Adams is now was what?
Ackerman's drugstore that time.
Okay, and
And they would, we could take the car there.
it turned right there, didn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, and there was a stop right where now Adams Pharmacy is.
That's right.
But it's been a pharmacy for a number of years, wasn't
A
it?
lot of it.
Yeah, so it was a pharmacy back when you were riding the Interurban car.
That's
In
right.
fact, if people would look at the building, the very top of the building,
Yeah.
they would know it was a pharmacy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you look at the top of the building, you will see the fact that it is a pharmacy when it was built.
Yeah.
But now it's Adams Pharmacy. You used to go into town. Normally, your mother, your brother, and yourself would ride.
Yeah. My mother would take us along to visit Uncle and Aunt in Sheboygan,
Okay.
or in Elkhart, and then sometimes we needed something from the store in Sheboygan, and I know Mother took some eggs along. She had a 15 dozen egg case that she could carry, and they would trade them in for merchandise in Sheboygan and the stores.
And that was one of the neat things during those years is that you never exchanged cash.
No.
You would actually get on the Interurban car with 15 dozen eggs, and you would ride into Sheboygan carrying 15 dozen eggs, and you would trade them in for a
Well, wherever we were going to go.
for a
if we went to-
certificate, so to speak, a certificate towards merchandise.
Yeah, right.
And then you would buy what you needed and
That's right.
get on the car and ride back.
Right back. That's
And for
right.
a dime, you could go to
I
Sheboygan.
don't remember how much it cost. It wasn't very much.
Yeah, it wasn't very much.
But it was a lot in those days.
Everything was a lot in those days,
That's
wasn't
right.
it? Yeah. And you would ride it more in the winter or more in the summer?
No, more in the summer, I think.
You traveled more. You went to see your relatives
Yeah.
more possibly in the summer.
In the winter time, we didn't
Hard to get out.
travel that much.
Yeah.
We'd go from home to town and maybe to Sheboygan Falls. And sometimes we left the horses in Sheboygan Falls and took the streetcar from there before they went as far as Plymouth.
Oh, so the car did not always travel all the way from Sheboygan all the way to Elkhart through Plymouth.
No.
There was a time when it only went from Sheboygan to Sheboygan Falls.
Right. And Kohler.
In Kohler, yes, because
Yeah.
that was for business.
Yeah.
But you mean it did not run the entire distance from
No,
its
it didn't.
in the very first time.
No, it didn't.
Oh, so there was a time then that they kept extending the track and moving it out to get Plymouth involved, and then it was a little
Right.
closer for you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Well, I certainly appreciate you coming on and talking to us about Interurban car. It's just a beautiful car, isn't it?
Yes, it
And the
is.
restoration is just beautiful.
Yeah, I imagine. It takes a lot of time and money.
It has done both. Taken both, you bet. We've had with us Lena Aldman, and I certainly want to thank you, and I want to thank you for watching. We have another guest in just a moment. Interurban car 26, sitting in front of it here, I have Russ Porter, and you know Glenn. He's been on the show several times. Glenn is the artist of wood, and Russ here is the artist of paint, of canvas, and they have come together to mix something that I'm going to hold up here, and this is a rendition, Russ, of a painting you've done.
The painting was, I would say, it started out with Glenn giving me a lot of the information on the color of the car and how the design was. So mainly it's his baby. All I did was paint it.
Well, I think that's being a little bit modest, don't you think,
No,
Glenn?
no.
Yeah, no kidding. But there was a communication between both of you, and Glenn, I think you did get it started by getting all the colors figured out.
Yeah, we had talked quite a bit. Russ wanted to do a painting, of the car, the way it used to look and so on. We have only black and white pictures to go from, and so he actually went to Sheboygan. Those are actual buildings in Sheboygan. Most of them still stand. He took pictures of those to get the color to bricks right and everything. And while I was doing my research on the car, scratching around, looking for the original colors and so on, we talked quite a bit about, this is what it's supposed to look like.
Now, Russ, you had an interest in doing the Interurban car. Is doing trains and cars this kind of specialty of yours or a hobby?
That's my hobby. For about 46 years.
I have a feeling it's a bit more than just a hobby. It might have been, can we say profession too, part-time profession?
Part-time.
It's nice to have a hobby that is fun and also can put food on the table, huh?
True, true.
And now you have done cars, railroads, for years.
Oh, yeah.
What is your interest regarding that mode of transportation? Why not the big, fast cars today?
Well, I'm living in the past.
That's fine.
And there's so much interest today that's growing, even among the young children. Something about the past fascinates them. And so that's what I'm trying to reproduce in the paintings. Something that they could look at and enjoy.
Now, Glenn, when you first got in contact and you got the colors right, and you saw it change from black and white to color, did it also must have helped you in restoration?
A little bit, I mean, this is stuff we had to look into in order to get the car reproduced right. And it was kind of fun talking with Russ. We had a good time. That's one of his best paintings, I think. It has a lot of feel to it and everything. I like the way he did up the winter scene with the footprints in the snow and stuff. People walk around. I mean, it actually looks like the car's in use. I think it's great.
Well, why don't you point to a couple of those parts for me then? If we can center in on this print, and give me a couple of the attributes there, if both of you would attack that just a little bit.
I would say that I like winter scenes because in most cases you can hide a lot of detail that you have to show in the summertime. And I'd like to point out one thing here. You see this gentleman shoved in snow. I've used him in 3 paintings so far. And it's sort of a trademark in the winter scenes. But
is it anybody we know?
no,
Yeah.
no. No.
And Glenn, would you point out what you're talking about, the footprints, et cetera?
Well, yeah, here with the conductor helping the lady off the car, you see the footprints in the snow. I like the smoke coming out of the chimneys and everything. I mean, this is a great winter scene. Look at it. Coal stove is lit in the car. There's a little smoke coming out of the stove and stuff. And, what a, it just looks homey. It's a nice looking.
I was going to say what amazes me is very close in agreement as far as the colors went.
Yeah.
I mean, I painted this, how long ago?
Right at the start of the job. It's been a year and a half now when you finish the painting.
So we've come up pretty close to the same colors.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, we should let our people know that this prints are still available. And you need to talk to the friends of Car 26 to find out how you too can have one. They have a couple different kinds. They have some that are signed and numbered by this man right here. And then we have some open ones also. But if I was going to get one, I'm going to have it signed and numbered, okay? Yeah, I understand that. And well worth it.
Extra effort. No money involved.
But, besides being just a painting, it's a very accurate representation of what these cars saw in service. Like I said, those are actual buildings in Sheboygan, and most of them are still standing. And that was a picture. That car sat right in front of those buildings, just like that. This isn't a fairy tale. This wasn't made up.
Right, this is 1928.
Yeah.
Somewhere between the 1920s and 1938.
Probably even earlier, because it's still the original paint scheme there and everything. So the era of this painting is probably prior to about 1915. Okay. After that time, the doors and stuff would have been painted yellow and not varnished and so on.
And you knowing that, having changed to varnish from the Interurban Car 26 right here.
Yeah.
Now, it has to be neat to have done a painting, and then later come back and see the actual item sitting right behind us here and how closely it does match.
I can't wait until it's at East Troy and operating. And actually seeing it the way it looks there.
With the wheels on it.
The wheels.
I've been waiting to see the wheels under it. I have. But now, So you had this painted a year and a half ago, and it's just now that the car just now is actually fitting it.
He's slow.
Oh, yeah.
He's slow.
Actually has more surface area to cover. Let's give him some credit.
Come on, I use the same size brush.
Well, I certainly want to wish Glenn best of luck down the stretch. We're kind of in the home stretch, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we got about 2 more months here. We should be done by the end of September. We should have the steps in it and the rest of the interior completed, all the doors in and stuff like that. So,
And what brought you in today? You got invited to come and see an open house. Did you want to meet some of the people who used to ride it?
Yes, to see how many people are left.
And there's quite a few.
And the Dodens always invite us.
Sure, sure. But there's quite a few people that actually have ridden on this that came back to see it again. Isn't that something? Well, I want to thank both of you for being here for a great open house. It's been a nice turnout of people that used to ride 26. I'm glad I was finally able to meet the person behind the painting. And, of course, I've known the guy behind the restoration for quite a while now. But I want to thank also Dan for being on the camera. And as we possibly pan the side of the Interurban car, before we close out, I want to thank everyone for being with us during this segment of meeting some people that used to ride the Interurban car 26.